There we are. I'm live. I don't know if anybody's already there. It's 3:59. We were just trying to set everything up. Oh, Edward John says, all right. All right, it's working. This was no easy task for Kelly and me, who helped me put this whole thing together. So, just wanted to take this time to be with you since we can't go out and we can't play shows. So I want to interact with you as much as I could while we're all sequestered. So a little nervous about it. This is our first live YouTube broadcast, so forgive me if I stumble a little bit. But I think, oh, hey man, hope you're doing well. That's from Kevin Garner. Hi, Robin from Mexico City, from Brandon Calvillo. And Edward Jones, hello from Yorkshire in the UK. John's the first person to log in, I noticed, or at least to say something. So here at our home in Nashville, Tennessee, I was actually supposed to play Saturday night here in Nashville at 3rd and Lindsley, but gig was canceled for obvious reasons. I didn't cancel it. I probably would have gone out and played it, just FYI. But people are nervous. Hello from North Carolina. I assume NC, North Carolina. Hi, Robin, and everyone from LA. Javier. Thank you. So, greetings from Atlanta. Greetings from Colombia, South America. Some of my favorite people. Some of my favorite experiences in South America for sure. So, I hope the screen looks good. And I would like to open up for questions. Just been watching you from Edward again, from the UK. Watching you and Bill playing at Lugano. Okay, cool, Eddie. You two seem to really get the best from each other. Would love to hear your talk about that playing relationship. Ah, nice. Well, indeed, Bill and I have just finished our second record together. Probably won't be out until July, but we pressed 300 for Japan, where we're supposed to be going to Japan, leaving April 4th and playing in Tokyo and Nagoya. But we're not so sure that's going to happen. Kelly, actually, who designed this cover of the new Bill Evans, Robin Ford, Daryl Jones, Keith Carlock, called Common Ground. Can't read that. But in any case, this is the new record from Bill and me. It probably won't be formally released until maybe, it could take as late as July. It'll be on the Ear Music label, which is the same label that put out our last CD together and my last CD called Purple House. So yeah, we have a very good musical connection. It's interesting to me. And, you know, getting to play with people like him and Daryl Jones on bass from the Rolling Stones, but of course, he's a Miles Davis alumni, as is Bill and as am I. And Keith Carlock on drums, who's just one of the greats, just amazing. Keith lives here in Nashville, by the way. So anyway, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm going to look here a little further. Hi, Ford from Merida, Mexico. Hello from Helsinki, Finland. Greek guy. Tom Minette, hello from New Jersey, lockdown. Yes, Nashville lockdown here. Michael Costello. Do you think, is everything kind of in order here, babe?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry if I missed, forgive me if I skipped someone, but we have Brandon Calvillo. Yeah, can we talk about your outside playing, like City Life, the song? I've always been intrigued by that song. I have to admit to you, I don't remember it. And that record was actually not my record. It was a different artist's record. And it was released as City Life as a Robin Ford record, which it was not. And I really don't remember that music I'm sorry. But outside playing, that's somewhat misunderstood. You're never really playing outside. You're just playing kind of different scales and relating to chords in a more open way. Like you could play a 1-6-2-5 change over one chord, and it sounds outside, but really um, you're just superimposing chords. And for me, of course, a lot of it is the diminished scale, half step, whole step scale, which I use liberally in my playing. So don't know what more to say about that particularly, but thank you for asking. Let's see. Outside playing. Halam Kite. Hey, Robin, do you do any specific or have routine to get yourself ready to perform a show? I warm up my voice. I figure by the time I have a show in front of me, I should be ready for it already. And it's kind of a combination of things, like for one thing, I keep my music relatively simple. And I like to let a band shine to take some of the weight off of me. I do warm up a little bit, but I don't really have a proper routine, I must admit. And I'll tell you what, a friend of mine named Don Mock, great guitar player from Seattle, I just remember him saying, to a group of students, he said, you play what you practice. So if you're going to practice, I think it's good to have some very basic warm-up things, but then, work on things that you want to play, lines, melodic lines. Everything should be a melodic line. Sometimes it's just played a lot faster, So it's kind of like composing on the spot. Peter Fisher, greetings from Molheim, Germany. Did I skip one? Rhythmic ideas in your phrasing from Javier. Probably stealing from other musicians. Hang on. I would like, from which musicians do you usually steal? He said transcribe. Personally, I'm kind of proud of my rhythm playing because I never really studied rhythm playing, like listening to other people and playing what other people played. I never did that. People that I studied and tried to play like were Michael Bloomfield, B.B. King, really just by listening and finding it, Mike Bloomfield was the biggest. Also Eric Clapton, was very, very influential. The rhythm playing thing, though, I just started doing it, I just started doing it. And because you have listened to a lot of people play, you have heard things, from other people, they will come through. It kind of happens naturally, but I never practiced it. I just played a lot. And Hendrix, like that kind of later on, I found myself playing in that style, not from having practiced it, but from having listened to it so much that it just started coming through, So the most important thing, I think, is to be out there playing. A lot of listening, a lot of playing. These are the two most important things you can do. Listen, play, listen, play, listen, play. And being in a band is seriously important. So trying to learn dim scale, Kevin Garner. Any secrets other than lots of practice? Lots of playing. Lots of pushing yourself to do things that you're uncertain of, Like I always was of the school of, not afraid to be a fool. I'm not afraid to be foolish. I'm not afraid on a bandstand to, didn't make that, And also, again, keeping the music simple. You don't have to play like John Coltrane, I mean, I don't know if I ever thought I could ever play like John Coltrane. I doubt that I ever had that foolish thought. But I sure listened to a lot of them. And at a certain point, I stopped competing. I stopped trying to sound like somebody else. I stopped trying to be something I was not. So to become the musician that you are, that's really important. And the musician that you are may be a blues player like myself, and not John Coltrane, who I've listened way more jazz than I have any other form of music, for sure. Probably Miles Davis records more than any other artist's records. And all of that music, for the most part, is beyond me. But you take in, some of it. You take in the feel of it, the rhythm of it, and apply it in the way that makes sense for you. And again, in my case, relatively simple music, blues-oriented, rhythm and blues-oriented. I spent a lot of time developing myself as a songwriter so that I had something to play that, was mine instead of playing somebody else's music. I started doing that real early, but more so like after the Talk to Your Daughter album, which came out in '89. From there, I really went on the songwriter journey, developed myself as a songwriter because I didn't want to be a cover band, and I don't even want to be a cover band of myself. So I always like new music. And people, they miss hearing some of the older things, but I'm like, I need something different, So developing yourself as a musician. What do we got, babe? Feedback. Recently, I was listening to Paul Desmond's I Get a Kick Out of You. Oh, come back. It jumped up from another post. There, good. I love you for that. Sounds impressionistic. I know you were influenced by Desmond. To what extent are you inspired by French Impressionism? That was a wonderful question, man. Where are you from? Just says feedback. So, yeah. Listen to the Jim Hall solo, the whole thing, of course, with Desmond, but Jim Hall, that's where I became aware of Jim Hall, like on, what's the song? Like Someone in Love on Desmond Blue. Woo! Just my favorite. And sounds impressionistic, Jazz is impressionistic music. It is. And, inspired by French Impressionism, I have always found that to be my favorite form of art, painting. My favorite artists in both painting and in classical music are French. Ravel's my favorite composer. Debussy would probably be second. And my favorite painter is Matisse. And I went through a period, though, of like, I was a big Pablo Picasso fan. He's Spanish, but of course studied and developed in France, Paris. And Degas, I love Degas, just fantastic, and Renoir. So again, I really feel like painting, and it's like what we were talking about earlier. It's like, you listen, you play, you look, you play. There's a feeling that's in there. And if you know how to play a major scale, you know how to play 7 modes, and you know how to play most of the chords that you need. So just take those little ingredients, It's like opening up the refrigerator. Okay, we got some celery. We got this, we got that, and you make a meal, Beautiful question. Thank you so much for that. Hi from Santa Ynez. Thank you. Missed one from Edward Johns. Was there a period in your early playing when you realized that you were no longer having to think about where you were on the fretboard, and have you any thoughts on what got the level of what got you to that level of fluency? It's just familiarity, man. If you drive a complex route, to a destination, same, with the guitar, you play it, you get familiar with it. If I hit this note on this string, that what it's going to sound like a whole step away. And again, for me, keeping the music simple, things aren't going by too fast, so I kind of, it's like composing, just a little quicker time. And then, of course, your habits, the things that you've done over and over and over again, those are what you rely on. And you just let that flow. You just start playing, just start playing. And then you look, then you kind of feel and hear your way through something, you know? It's hard to talk about these things, but, I'm self-taught, so that's how I learned how to play. Best I can do right now, but thank you. Lita Rodriguez, can you talk about your singing and playing at the same time? Does it change your rhythm playing in order to keep up with your vocal lines? I can say that it is really hard. It's very hard to do. And I look at videos of myself sometimes performing, and I can see that, like I'm thinking about this, and I'm singing those words to that song. And in a way, one kind of takes away from the other, but I did my best to strengthen that chop. And it requires a tremendous amount of concentration. It really does. It's just hard. And I don't think you should do it. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's better have a singer, and play the guitar, or sing and let somebody else play the guitar, and then play the guitar when you're not singing. I really mean this. I've just kind of, this is how I did it throughout my life, and I wound up being kind of stuck with it. But what I love is when a band is actually supporting me in a way that I don't have to play, and I know everything is fine. Because again, it's distracting. It really is. It's one kind of distracts from the other. And the guitar always takes precedent in my case. That's always better. And the vocal, I'm kind of trying to make that happen while I'm playing guitar. It's hard. And again, I don't really recommend it. The way that I do it, it's hard, man, So better to have somebody else playing, you sing, and then play the guitar. Honestly, that would be my advice. I'm sorry, Travis W. Do you find that your spiritual life affects your playing? Well, all of these things are kind of integrated. Kind of a deep question, meditation. I remember saying once that a meditation allows you to kind of know what it is that you want to do. So it creates a sense of space and a sense of confidence and relying on yourself. You relax, you learn to relax in the space, which allows you to do everything else. It's like everything comes out of the space of relaxation, which, fundamentally I see meditation as that, as and hopefully that in an expansive way, like space on a larger scale, than one might normally experience. That's what meditation kind of, I think, brings into your life, is space. The space, less fear, less uptightness, So spiritual life, better put as spiritual practice. My spiritual practice is a form of Buddhist meditation, and it's quite simple. And I'm trying to get simpler and simpler, So that opens up the space for discovery.
Less afraid to be a fool.
Less afraid to be a fool, as my friend Kelly just said. I'm pretty good with that one. So, Michael Kakridonis, best I can do. Greek, maybe. So, with the diminished scale, do you have specific spots that you'd like to start and finish your phrasing? For example, from the fifth to the root. I was thinking about something like this, something that relates to this just the other day. I'm a blues player, and I use those same, kind of actionable points. Actionable in that, start, like how would you start? I start with a blues lick, The diminished scale just works perfectly, over a seventh chord, a flat out G7. You can play the diminished scale, right? So any of those notes that, some people would consider kind of out, and really there's only, the flatted ninth is the only one that kind of rocks anybody's boat, or the flatted second, your first step. That's the only note in that whole scale that in any way I think would make anyone go, what? And diminished arpeggios exist, starting on, like, again, the key of G. You played a diminished arpeggio, G, B flat, D flat, etc. Minor third intervals. Up a half step, minor third intervals. There you go. You can move those up in minor thirds, right? So you want to experiment with it, and you return because the key you're in is G, and the scale of G7, which is actually the C major scale, dare I say, or the Mixolydian mode, but I always called it the G7 scale. Those sounds are your landing points, just the basic notes of the triad. Just the basic notes of the triad are kind of your landing points. And then you have all that lovely stuff you can do, like bending the flatted fifth up to the fifth. Right there, you've just played diminished, right? You've just played D flat to D. That's diminished, Or B flat, which is the minor third of G to B major. That's diminished, half step, right? You take a whole step and another half step. And just use the chord as your reference point. Like you were saying, fifth, I think. You said something about fifth to the tonic, was it? Can I find it? Where is it, babe? I don't see it. It's gone. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think we've addressed the subject. Yeah, fifth to the root. Sure. How about the flatted fifth, to the root? Minor third, flatted fifth, sixth, root. I don't know. Just experiment with it, So what's after that? Jay McLovin, would you talk to us about your very early years of learning guitar? How much did you practice? How did you practice? Was the struggle real for you too, or were you born playing guitar? I think the guitar is my natural instrument because my first was saxophone. So I learned to read notes and rhythms, beginning at age 10. I learned notes and the staff, So, but the guitar, I just, my father showed me my first few chords. And finding the pentatonic scale was not difficult. The guitar is tuned to the pentatonic scale. So it's right there. Just go like that. But you just play the notes in a different order, right, than the string order. And listening to, Mike Bloomfield initially, and just being blown away, and then starting to hear more and more blues that was simpler than what he was playing. Mike Bloomfield was the first blues virtuoso, at least that anybody heard. He brought electric blues guitar to the attention of the rest of us, who brought it to the attention of others. And he's ground zero for me. So the pentatonic scale is not that hard, to get in your ear. And then there were just a couple of more notes. The major sixth, was introduced in there. And major third and minor third, flatted fifth, of course, bending. So initially it was just play, play, play. Try to play, find on the guitar things I was hearing from other blues guitar players, not from John Coltrane, So that's how I started. And then I realized that I didn't know any chords other than basic cowboy chords and a ninth chord. So I got a book and I learned the chords out of the book and started playing them in a blues context. And then I realized that I didn't know what to play over those chords. What do you play over a 13 flat 9, So I got a book and I learned the scales out of the book. And I just started applying them the same way that I had the pentatonic scale to the blues. This is the key. This was the key for me. was I just played the quote, altered things, same way I was playing the blues, And then, of course, listening to great jazz players, I was able to start to pick up. I could hear, oh, that's I didn't use the language because I didn't know it, but that's the melodic minor up a half step, on that altered chord. That I didn't know the name of it. I just had learned it and started applying it, So that's my story in a nutshell. From Will Fugit. Do you have a general approach, method to songwriting? Any particular equipment, software you find valuable for that process? I'm what I believe they call a Luddite. I don't even have recording equipment, I used to make home demos. I'd writing a song and I would demo it and everything. And at some point I realized I was spending far more time demoing than I was writing songs. And for me, again, I'm old school, honestly, it took me a long time even to move from a pen and legal pad to writing, on a computer, notes, the notes thing, app. That's what I use to write lyrics now. I don't use pen and paper anymore. But I used to use a pen and only blue ink. For someone had told me something about that. And a guitar. And I've written almost every record I have ever made sitting on the couch with a guitar and something to write on. And it used to be pen and paper, once again. So my approach to songwriting is, any small idea. But if I'm writing songs, lyrics, I always spend way more time on the lyrics than the music, because the music's relatively easy. It comes fairly easily, You just play something, If you don't like it, change it. Do it a different way. Really, it's just a lot of experimentation, man. Even a 4-chord progression, you can bet that I went through several iterations of that sequence of chords. I might even have boiled it down to just one chord that started as 4. But that's simple, you know what I mean? It's like not complex. Just like I like to equate it all with weights and measures, That's too heavy right there. Or that's too light right there. That chord, I don't want to hear that bright major chord there. I need to hear something a little darker, warmer, deeper, sadder, So I just feel my way through the white keys of the piano. It's just the white keys of the piano. It really is. And what's that?
You mentioned your True Fire songwriting course.
Oh, indeed. I have a True Fire songwriting course. If you're familiar with truefire.com, I have a songwriting course, couple actually. One's coming out kind of soon, but one is already out. So I talk a lot about all of these things, and that would be nice if you want to go to True Fire and get my songwriting course. Much more can be presented in that in a lengthier period of time than I can right now. But I feel my way through everything, and I take a long time. I found on one of your interviews you grabbed a book to start learning jazz chords and harmony. Do you remember what that book was? Yes, and we just mentioned that a little bit ago. The book on jazz chords was Mickey Baker, Jazz Volume 1. And I did my own book called Rhythm Blues. I think it was published by Hal Leonard a long time ago. And basically that was, I took what I gleaned from the Mickey Baker and I put it into my style. It's blues chord progressions and how I applied what I learned from Mickey Baker. I was playing with Charlie Musselwhite at the time, Chicago blues band, and I would just take all those chords and I'd go down there and just apply them to 12-bar blues. So my book, suddenly becoming a salesman here, my book, Rhythm Blues, shows you how I use Mickey Baker, which I would still recommend Mickey Baker, probably over my book. But it's kind of the same thing, but in a blues context. Jeff Mackerlane? Hi, everyone. Don't forget to like this video with the thumbs up and subscribe. My dear friend Jeff Mackerlane is keeping an eye on us here on our first day and helping us do a proper video cast here. So anyway, thank you, Jeff. Always, Jeff Mackerlane, great guitar player. We've recorded and toured together. Can you chat about a couple of your Gibsons? Well, right behind me there is Epiphone Riviera 65. Do you want to demonstrate that?
No. Do you want me to?
Sure.
Which one?
Holy mackerel. Let's do the mice. We have trouble with mice. Let's do the red one. This is the least played guitar in my collection and my favorite one to look at. So this is a 1964 355. It's the kind of guitar B.B. King, when I saw B.B. King play, he was playing this. But you may have noticed it used to have a Bigsby. Actually, it wasn't Bigsby. It was the Lyre, called a Lyre. You know, beautiful wide kind of metal strip like this with a beautiful Lyre design on it, and a little whammy bar, you know, with the pearl handle. Beautiful. It took me a long time to finally actually do this and make this change. I'm still ambivalent about it, but the guitar sounds better. I disconnected the this. That's gone. Took it out. It's heavy. And anyway, the pickups sound best when they're not connected to all that stuff. Beautiful classic headstock. Ebony fretboard. So for me, you know, B.B. King, obviously, he's the only person I ever heard really make this thing sound good. No one ever, people don't play this guitar, you know. And honestly, its best application would probably be with flat wound strings and as a jazz instrument. I used it on the road with Phil Lesh when I toured with Phil in 2000. And some people may have heard some of that. But anyway, I just love it. It's beautiful. And shall we look at the Epiphone 2? Well, let's look at the Epiphone 2. This guitar I use and have used to greater and lesser degree over the years. In particular on my album, Bringing It Back Home. It's on the cover, and it's the only guitar I play on the whole record, man. This is a 65 Epiphone Riviera, and it had a Bigsby on it, you know, with the whammy bar and big old honking chunking thing. I did the change here too, to the stop tailpiece. And both these guitars are in very good shape because they never spent a lot of time on the road, you know. It's, of course, a rosewood fretboard, and it's got these different kind of inlays here. It's said to be a 335 with a Epiphone headstock. You know, Gibson owned the company, but it also has the mini humbuckers, you know. And I prefer them. I prefer them to the 335. This is just, you know, for me, it's just bluesier, throatier, woodier. You know, I love that sound. Beyond that, I play Les Pauls. Indeed, I do. And the Robin Ford model morphed from its original origins, which was kind of akin to this, with an ebony fretboard, a double cutaway with cavities in it. Eventually, it morphed into basically a Les Paul with a double cutaway design. So Les Pauls for me, ultimately, if I had a great one, and I just keep going through them to find that great one, you know. I love the gold tops that I've had, but you know, one had the P90s and the other I had humbucking pickups put into it. I did the mod, you know. And ultimately it was like, I don't know, I just still wasn't completely satisfied. So still on that journey, I have to tell you. I'm amazed at the huge vocabulary you have. How do you approach learning the language of your influences? In your playing, I hear quotes of early blues, jazz, pop, and it always sounds like you. Thank you very much. So the language you're referring to is the musical language, I think. You said learning the language of your influences. You're a poet, very artistic. For me, it's listen and find it. Just listen and find it. Listen and find it. And if you don't find it, you find something else because you're applying yourself. You know, you want to play something that sounds like that, even if you can't play that, you know? And those musical influences, they just go into you, you know? So you're in a sense channeling, your influences. I mean, but as best you can. And I listen to a lot of saxophone players and I play the guitar. So when I'm playing like saxophone players that I've listened to, it's going to sound like me to a great extent because I'm playing a guitar instead of a saxophone, even though I'm playing those very similar lines, to the saxophone players that I heard. It sounds different because it's on the electric guitar, loud, So the influences, to a great extent for me, again, are horn players. And that helps you have your own sound, individual sound. Listen to a different instrument and try to do that one, Big fan here. Do you find, am I on the right one? Do you find Fabio Moreira? Moreira. I'm usually pretty good with this. Hi, Robin, big fan here. Do you find reading music, especially rhythm notes, not only chords, very important for guitar players? Is a big deal here in Taiwan. Just want to hear your opinion on that. Well, I have something to say. And I was corroborated. This was corroborated for me by 8 other guitar players. I was on a panel. There's a festival, a guitar festival every year in Colorado called Guitar Town. And I've done it 2 or 3 times now. So there's all these guitar players there for 3 days, hanging out. And John Jorgensen was one. I can't remember people's names right now. But there were literally 9 guitar players, and many of them, were educated, unlike myself. The most educated of them all was sitting on my left, an amazing guitar player. I think he actually teaches at MI, but an amazing player. Every one of these guitar players, to a man, said, learning to read is not important. So, learning to read it's like, you learn to speak English before you learned how to read it, and you learned it out of necessity, and you learned it because you wanted to know how to speak. You wanted to know why these people were moving their mouths, and making strange sounds. So, and it's like learning to walk. Nobody teaches you how to walk. You don't read a book on it, man. You just get up, fall down, get up, fall down. That's how I learned how to play the guitar. I learned how to read notes and rhythms, again, via the saxophone. But I don't write out music. I hate writing it out. It hurts my hand. It actually, honestly, I feel like it goes against what I have here. My thumb. I've experienced, tendinitis and all kinds of stuff in elbow and arms, So I've had to work with that. I've used Qigong to work with that. And anyway, but once again, all of them, it's like, you should just, play. I got chords out of a book. I got the scales out of a book. But somebody can show them to you, So that's my answer. Javier, Importa. When you can't use your dumble, which amp do you think is the best to get your sound? So far, I haven't really found it. And there's a lot of different applications, for amplifiers. I've been learning through experience, I'm still learning about this, believe it or not, as long as I've been doing it. But You know, I like a super reverb. I really like a super reverb, but there's a little bit missing in the low end. It's a little bit thin for me, and I think it's the speakers. You know, I'm so used to the 2x12 that 410s just sounds a little thin. It's not beefy enough, you know. So I've used supers, I've used twins, the Hot Rod DeVille, and especially the Mike Landau model are quite good, very good, you know. And I'm working now with an amplifier called Little Walter, Phil Bradbury at Little Walter Amplifiers. He and I are engaged in developing, you know, an amp and cabinet for me that I'm really happy with. And also things can change over time. Maybe you don't want to be as loud, you know. I'm actually trying to get my volume down. But anytime I go out, man, and especially in a trio setting, I want the Dumble. So it's tough. It's tough. You know, but I would be more inclined to just encourage you to find something that works for you, you know. Maybe you already know that, and just we're asking the question. But yeah, you need to get a good amp, get a good guitar, find your sound there, and then you can go out and, you know, maybe add pedals and, you know, experiment with sounds and everything. But first you want to get that guitar amp thing together. And so many people skip that stage of their development as a player. You know, you need to get down with that thing, man, you know. And so ultimately for me, I would say it depends first on how loud you want to be. And of course I want it to be loud. So a Fender Twin would probably be the closest, you know, thing to, you know, something that would, you know, it's 2x12. I got used to 2x12 real early on, man. And so how wide, how loud, how big you want your sound to be. Speaker cabinet has a lot to do with that, and, you know, wattage has a lot to do with that. Your guitar solos are amazing, thank you. Based on the blues, but with a touch of jazz. In that sense, what tool do you recommend studying to expand the language and get a better speech when improvising? The diminished scale looms large in my legend. Learning chords. Learn chords and learn the scales that are played over those chords. And that's what I did. And I just applied it the same way I applied the pentatonic scale to the blues. Just apply it the same way. You know, you don't have to play all the notes, just play a couple of them. Like the blues is best spoken in a simple fashion, you know, with occasional outbursts of rage. So that would be my recommendation. Let's do 3 more. Any word on the release date for the new album, Bill, Keith, and Daryl? Will it be on vinyl? Thanks. It will be on, well, I'm not sure. I never saw vinyl on the last one. They may not have done vinyl. They may not be doing vinyl on our records together. I would hope no later than July. We just got the record to them maybe a week ago, actually. Maybe a couple of weeks ago, maybe. So they like 6 months. So that would make it, you know, August or September. I hope they turn it around a little quicker than that. If we don't go to Japan, Bill and I each have 150 that we were going to take, and we'll make them available to you. Why, Javier, once again, why you take the pick guard off the Epiphone? It just got in the way for me. And you notice I took it off the, didn't I? Yeah, I always take pick guards off Gibsons. Always. It's just in the way. I don't know. I started doing that a long time ago. My Les Pauls, I always take, you know. Sebastian Ibieta. Hi, Robin, the saxophone sound you play, is it a conscious, or you then kind of hear a record you played at the guitar and notice the sax sound? Well, it's just a big influence, like when you're playing, you're not thinking about it too much, You have to kind of let it flow. And that's why practice, is about habit, so that thing just comes to you quicker and faster, And so it kind of connects with the, you play what you practice. So if you're practicing scales, then you're only going to be playing scales, right? So you want to practice, that's why blues playing is such a nice way to open, to begin, get a good basis in a vocal sounding practice, So then just the things you listen to, the more you listen, and you just try it. You just try to do it. Try to do something like that and make terribly embarrassing mistakes in front of people, and go do it again, and then go do it again. That's my story, man. Not afraid to be a fool. Have you ever forced yourself to write music? What tricks you have for inspiration, etc.? Okay. I would have to say no. I've never forced myself, but you corner yourself. That's probably a thing for people. Like if you don't have a deadline, you don't finish anything. So I have had a lot of the luxury of a deadline with a record company. I need to write some songs for a record. And I used to set aside, literally, I would set aside 3 months to write an album. And that's what I did. I wouldn't tour. It's like, okay, for the next 3 months, I'm going to write a record, then we're going to go in and record it, and then I'd spend the rest of my life on the road. So, deadline. Not forced, but forced, by nature to have to come up with the goods, So you have to give yourself, an assignment, or you have to give yourself a reason, Most of us are like that. There are a few people who sit around writing songs. They do it for a living. And that's why they do it a lot. It's because they do it for a living, So you have to have a reason. You do. And you have to have, you want somebody to hear it. Otherwise, why write it, Unless you are happy with that. And there are some people who I think are. And great. For me, it's work, but it's work that I enjoy. I started writing songs to make money. That's why I started writing songs with lyrics. Instrumental music, I was just inspired because I love jazz and I wanted to do things, like that sounded like Wayne Shorter records, So I would write songs and get the band together, rehearse, and play a gig on the weekend. And the gig, and to be playing music that was my own was important to me. 2 more. Okay. Which modern artist? We didn't talk about that one. Oh, did you at any point during your development actively think about what notes you were hitting during a solo, or do you know? Or was it always by ear and feel? Well, there are only so many notes you can hit on a chord. There's a scale that runs through that chord, and you must only hit those notes. So you can hit any one of them. There's a discipline to it, but there's also a freedom to it. You can hit any of those notes you want. And you put them together any way you want. And I was putting them together in ways that I thought sounded like the people that I was listening to, of course, But I would always kind of fall back on, lean on the blues playing, to get me through. And then I would use a little of that, For me, jazz is kind of like, it's used in my playing as kind of a spice, a way to kind of get people's ears to go, wow, what was that, But I'm fundamentally a blues player.
So many good questions.
Okay.
We could finish with this one.
What was the one I started? I want to answer this one. Which modern artist would you like to produce? Oh, I am producing records, by the way. I recently produced a record on a young guitarist named Daniel Donato, whom I would recommend finding on YouTube. And he's all over Instagram and everywhere else. Really good young guitar player, a good songwriter. And he's also a vocalist. And Daniel Donato, His record hopefully will be no later than July. It's going to come out on Compass Records. And I produced the record on Bill Evans and myself that we were just talking about. And also I'm producing John Jorgensen, the great guitarist right now. We're not sure if that's going to come out on 13J or on Compass, but I've got a nice relationship developing with Compass Records here in Nashville that I would like to produce. I have not entertained that thought because it's probably not going to happen. You know, I'm starting kind of from the ground up as a producer, but indeed, I can actually tell you one. Because once I moved to Nashville, I was introduced to a band called the Time Jumpers, and Vince Gill is a friend, and Vince plays with the Time Jumpers. They're steel guitar players, a guy named Paul Franklin, and I'm like, I would like to produce a record on that guy. And I ran into Paul in a music store here in Nashville, and I said, "You ever made a record, Paul?" Because I hadn't seen it. You know, he goes, "No, not really." He said, "I did some things on YouTube, and I've made a record with Vince Gill," and he's just recently making another record with Vince Gill. I said, "No." I said, "How about doing one with me?" He said, "Yes." So I'm very excited about this. Paul Franklin is one of my favorite musicians I've ever heard. And he's a steel guitar player and just incredible. Not only country, the guy can play anything. You hear him generally in a country setting. And this has been an interesting thing for me in Nashville. Like the things that I'm doing, they have this kind of, you know, let's say Americana vibe, as opposed to a jazz vibe, right? So I'm looking forward to producing Paul at the end of May. You know, man, I wouldn't mind producing a lot of people, but it's not going to happen. Who knows? You know, like once I get this show on the road and see people start thinking of me as a producer, maybe some things will happen. I appreciate the question. It's kind of interesting. I hadn't thought about it, and I think I will. Okay, one more. This one?
Yeah, just to finish.
Jay McLovin, once again, how you like living in Nashville? And it's perfect for me, and I wish I'd come here 15 years ago. Best environment for a musician in America, and generally, if you're talking about a musician, that would be in the world. So, you know, I always consider, like, here's Nashville, and then there's everything around it, and that's where everything is happening. It's happening all around Nashville. You know, it's happening in the suburbs, and I live in East Nashville, which is considered kind of an upcoming hip neighborhood. And I am loving it. I'm really loving it. Nashville's not a beautiful city. It's not attractive to me. There's a lot of construction going on. You know, it's a growing city. Traffic keeps getting a little more intense, you know, but wow.
We just had a tornado.
And we just had a tornado. Oh my God. Right here. Wow. That was amazing. So if you don't like tornadoes, anyway, very happy we're living, Kelly and I. And so it's been very good, very, very good for me. And I would encourage any musician, unless they have something specifically going on, you know, in their community where they are, you know, LA, New York, you know. I've lived in both of those cities, and they don't work for me. This place is working incredibly well for me. Go figure, you know. There was one more I thought I wanted to ask. Okay. I think I'm starting to get a dry throat.
Talk about your channel.
Oh, yes, indeed. Well, this, of course, is the YouTube channel. I have developed an online instructional channel on the TrueFire platform. Most of you are probably familiar with the Guitar Dojo, but this is my own personal teaching channel on at TrueFire.com. Robin Ford's Guitar Dojo, probably .com. You know, you'd find it there, or you go to TrueFire and find it there.
TrueFire.
Yeah, TrueFire. That's where you find it. And it's for beginning students and intermediate students. I will never consider myself an advanced teacher because I don't consider myself an advanced player. But I can do pretty well, I think, with the beginning and the intermediate thing. And right now, there are practically 50 videos up there available. So we release one a week. Every Monday, one new beginning and one new intermediate. And you could look at either one. They're both available to you if you subscribe. It's $15 monthly subscription.
And you interact with people.
And I interact with people. You mean on the feed? Yeah, I'm very much paying attention to the channel feed, which is where we can exchange. People will ask questions just like we're doing now. Only it's not live. It's messages that are not in real time, answered in real time. But I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. And anyone who wants to study guitar with me, I mean, basically, this is what I do. And again, it starts from the very beginning. So I really feel that beginning students shouldn't be afraid to come on board. Even though I know some people are a little daunted, but I think it's just because they don't want to do the work. Yeah, you have to work. You have to hurt your fingers, and all of that. But I start from the very beginning, and then pick up on the intermediate channel with okay, here's some chords and chord voicings and what to play against those chords, etc. And this will go on, as they say, as long as the doors are open. So I hope you join me there. And thank you very much for this. Kelly and I were both very nervous. I didn't realize I was nervous until we turned the camera on. Then I got nervous, but it seems to have gone along pretty well. And thank you so much. I want to thank my darling sweetie Kelly over here who's helping me. There she is. Is that beautiful right there? My gosh. Oh. Okay, everybody. Thank you. Oh, I'm so glad you did that. That's so sweet. You put your beautiful